Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another episode of the Third Fleet Podcast. I believe that this is episode 67. Not 100% sure. How you doing, Gaijin?
Doing good. And people thought we weren't going to have an episode this week.
I wasn't sure we were going to have an episode this week, so I think it's pretty fair. It's been hard with our schedules and stuff to actually link up and do stuff, and you're also this desperately addicted to Final Fantasy XIV, which takes up a lot of your time now as well. So there's that.
Yeah, and if it was just me, I would probably be able to put it aside for a few days because I've been dying to talk about the gameplay previews that we have for Sunbreak, which we're going to discuss some stuff today. So I've been dying to do like a video to talk about it, but it's like my daughter is playing Final Fantasy XIV now at the same level I am. So it's
this is so bad.
I'm not passing up opportunities to game hardcore with my daughter.
I am concerned.
So I can make a video, you know what I mean? So it's like I love YouTube to death, but I have to prioritize,
hardcore gaming with my daughter. Yes.
Yes, I would say it's a good one to now. Luckily, she's hyped as hell for Sunbreak as well, which means it's going to be hard, but we're going to find a way to transition and do them both.
And how the big question remains: how are you going to do content for Sunbreak when you're also balancing that with gaming with Yuna and doing Final Fantasy XIV?
And work and parenting and all the other
yes,
stuff.
and on all the other things. I'm just talking about the things that'll take up like your free time.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It's gonna be rough.
It's gonna be rough.
But I'll tell you what, dude. At least the games that you are playing are good games. Unlike one of the games that I've been playing over the last couple of days.
I want to ask you about that if I'm allowed to. Because
you are allowed to. We'll talk about it just briefly. I don't want to talk too much about it on this channel because it's mostly stuff from my other channel. But I did back in the day. Back in the day, and I say back in the day was like 2018. This is when Blizzard initially announced Diablo Immortal. I made a 7-video series about how friggin' upset I was over the fact that they were doing this. And there were a bunch of people.
And they listened to you, and they made it so that your series would be forward-looking and completely correct.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's like, there were a bunch of people that were saying, oh, Rurikhan, you're exaggerating. Blizzard's not going to do like the bad mobile thing. No. It's going to be a Diablo. It's going to be and there were people that had played it at BlizzCon 2018. They're like, no, dude, I played it. It's really good. It's a really good Diablo experience. And I just kept on doing my videos, my 7 videos detailing all of the failures of Blizzard as a company when it came to the Diablo franchise and other franchises that they did as well. So, because I've always been invested in Blizzard, both in World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, most of their titles at a very young age. That's why these titles have like special meaning to me. So Diablo Immortal comes out and I was like, okay, here we go. The only reason I even checked it out is because they made a PC version. Because if it was just on mobile, I wouldn't have even played it because I can't stand playing on touchscreen. It's like, that's a terrible experience. But it was on PC, so I was like, fine, we'll play it on PC. And so my objective was from the beginning is like, look, I'm going to play through this whole thing so that I can actually experience it and tell people, is it messed up or is it not messed up? Because there's a lot of people talking about legendary crests and gems and all of these different monetizations. So
you wanted to make sure that you were informed in order to join
I will see it for myself so that when I speak, nobody can tell me that I'm not right. That was the whole point of me playing through it. So I forced myself to, because I didn't like it. I didn't like the game at all. I thought the game was complete ass from the get-go. Because there's a lot of people that were actually saying, oh, if it wasn't so heavily monetized, it'd be a really good game. No, it's not. It's a crappy game. It's a crappy mobile game that sucks. It's outdated at best and mildly mediocre. Mildly mediocre at best. And outdated. It's just not a good game, basically. I mean, you're pressing 4 buttons, which are like your 4 abilities, and you can barely move your character on PC at least because you have to click things in order to attack monsters. And when you also have to click to move. So if you click on a monster's hitbox, your character's not going to move, and you're going to be stuck, and you have to dodge like, telegraph, stuff like that. And it's a pain in the ass to just like control it with a mouse and keyboard. And then the controller didn't work because, of course it didn't, because it's a garbage mobile port. And then the UI looks like complete mobile trash to the point where it even says tap to play. I'm on a PC game and it says tap to play. It's like, I'll tap this goddamn thing off my screen. So yeah, I put myself through it, and it was actually worse than I even predicted in my videos. So not only they made my fears 100% correct, they made it worse because it's really psychologically manipulative with trying to get you to just spend like $1, and then another one, and then 2, and then 4, and then 6. It keeps escalating, right? And then here's a season pass. And then here's the thing where you can buy all of the rewards from the season pass and some additional stuff. And then here's another thing that gives you like additional daily bonuses for you logging in. And you can stack this up to 3 months. And here's another thing that only unlocks at level 45 that is essentially another form of a season pass.
Everything but actual gameplay.
Yeah. It's just complete disgusting monetization. Everybody called it Diablo Immoral as opposed to Immortal. Diablo Immoral. But yeah, it was not a good time. The game itself is not good. The story is terrible. It basically grabs the story of Diablo 2 and takes a dump all over it. And it's just not good at all. There's nothing good about that game at all. And basically, when I finished the game and I recorded my review, I deleted the character and then installed the game. It's just,
as I say, I thought that was I was curious. It's like, is he being sponsored? Does he have to play? Because you obviously hated it, and then I saw your stream, and you're playing up until the very end of the game. I'm like, why is he playing a game? And you have like, do not support this trash or whatever.
Yeah. I had like a banner because there's a lot of streamers that thought, oh, it's gonna be funny. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna wail and I'm gonna show everybody how pay to win it is. And I think that this was actually genius from Blizzard. Because not only are they fleecing your average Joe customer, they're fleecing streamers. They're streamers who spend upwards of $10,000 in this game. It's like, what? It's like, I get it. You're doing it for content, for the memes, but you're also supporting the practice. It's just that simple.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, if it's as bad as it sounds, that people will then be able to look at some creators that they follow and go, okay, they're definitely... I wouldn't say shilling because they're the ones shilling out the money. It's like, fake enthusiasm. Maybe might be the right word.
It's like the biggest problem with it is that a majority of people don't actually consume gaming content, right, on YouTube. So if you go to their respective store pages, the game is extremely highly rated because in terms of visuals, it looks great, right? It animates great. It's almost like a AAA looking game on your mobile device. So a lot of people, they're just like, oh, wow, this game looks amazing. Rated 5 stars. And it's like, oh, great. This is fantastic.
Okay, well, we'll head into more positive talk, but that's the lowdown. Everybody don't play
Diablo Immortal.
If you go to play Diablo Immortal, you've been warned. And that it is very predatory. I've read up on some of the stuff they're doing. So, like, don't give the money. It's like, I will sell you 50, but you need 52 to buy something.
Yeah.
It's that kind of crap as well. So, like, I that's no good.
And there's more to it, right? Like, there's stuff that I actually can't prove because it will require data mining and stuff like that. But I believe there's even additional psychological manipulation in the form of the loot that you get in the game. So, like, for instance, there are experience walls that you get around level 30 or something, and it's like, okay, you can't continue the story until you get to 35. Then you get to a little bit above 35, and you can't continue the story until you get to 40. Then you get a little bit above 40, you can't continue the story until you get to 51. And then same thing until 56. And then shortly after 56, you can't continue until level 60, at which point the story doesn't even end. The story just doesn't conclude. They didn't even care to finish the story of the game. But the point is, every time that I hit those marks, it's like, I know that I'm going to push through. There's a lot of players that will not. So what do? I have no way to prove this, but I believe that at that point, they increase your drop chance so that you will get a legendary to motivate you to push forward. Because every single time I hit one of those walls in my playthrough, I found a legendary item. every single time.
Yeah, people say that's a coincidence, but I see this in other mobile games as well.
I don't think it's a coincidence.
No, what I'm saying is like if I don't play a mobile game for let's say like a month or two, and then I return and I use a few gems that I have to roll the gacha, almost 9 out of 10 times I'm getting that featured legendary, even though they claim that it's still a 0.015% chance. I'm like, okay, once, sure, twice, raised eyebrow. It's like every time. I'm like,
it's psychological manipulation driven to the extreme, and it's like I know that is what the mobile market is. Yeah. I know that is what the mobile market is. The reason this bothered me so much is because it's got the Diablo name on it, and it's going to trick a lot of people that I would consider to be, part of the community of the Diablo community. They're going to be tricked into playing this, which is essentially just a random NetEase RPG with a Diablo skin, which sucks, but
Well, I will say this before we finally jump into the main topic, that I'm very happy that Yuna became addicted to Final Fantasy XIV as well, because she's almost completely lost her interest in the mobile games, which we played together for years. Because she's now realized, well, it's the monetization. She's like, we're getting all this game, and she knows that this is irregular. FF14 is kind of amazing in that way. There's just too much to do, and it's all fun. She's like, we get all this for like, what, a $10 whatever subscription? And it's like, just to spin one gacha in a game these days is $30, and 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 are going to be crap pulls, and you literally got nothing, right? Or you get a double of something you already have, and it's pointless. She's like, why would you spend $30 on that when you could just buy an entire game, or you could play all much? She's like, and she's starting to realize
I am so happy
the bad proposition of those games. So it's been a positive.
I am so, you have no idea how happy that makes me. To know that I took even just one person away from the mobile market, the clutches of psychological manipulation of the mobile market, that makes me so incredibly happy. Oh my God.
It's like you want a really expensive mount or something really special in Final Fantasy? Okay, you can just buy it if you want it.
Yeah.
It's not a god. You don't have to. You certainly don't have to. They've got more than enough there to mess around with, but it's also, there's no gacha mechanics. It's like, you just buy it. It's straight up how it should be, so
that makes me very happy. So let's transition into happier topics, because obviously we want to talk a lot about Monster Hunter, and I want to talk to you. I
can't believe we have a new Monster Hunter launching. Well, I guess new is
a G-rank. We have like a new expansion.
We have a release coming, a big release coming in like what, 3 weeks?
21 days. I don't know how many. 21 days.
That'd be like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even feel like it yet. And they're like, okay, we're gonna have our news bash for Monster Hunter amongst other things probably. And it's like, that's gonna be like mid this month. I'm like, they really 13th. Are really holding back on.
They are
marketing. Like, it's crazy.
We've been talking about the marketing of the game and how it's a little bit weird, but to be honest, like the more we get closer to the date and the less I know about the monsters, the more hyped I get. I'm like, I don't know which monsters there are. This is amazing, dude. Like we're not going to be spoiled by marketing material of the entire roster. Like it's almost like they listened to what we've been talking about.
Knock on some wood there, Ruri, because they probably would just come out and show everything in the next 2 weeks. So watch out.
No, I'm doing media blackout. Then it's like I have to stream the 13th thing. The thing that's happening on
media blackout in 2022. That's such a funny concept. Yeah, right.
You're right. Good luck with
that.
But
So they did what? They recently had a bunch of content creators in Japan as well as the West get like hands-on, which is what you might agree with me. It has to be a demo of the game, because it's just,
I don't know. You want to know the weird thing about it? Is that some outlets had access to actual Elgato, whereas like you usually don't have access to the hub in a demo.
Huh.
So it almost doesn't feel like a demo. It feels more like some kind of an alpha build or something.
Like an actual roadshow that they did.
And the other thing was also the same weapon. You see the same weapon with multiple sets. So like you'll see a longsword set that's using the Lunogaron set. Then you'll see a longsword set that's using something completely different. So I don't know what's going on there. It is weird.
Maybe it's not a demo then, but I mean, they were asked recently in the Japanese interviews. It's pretty much the same thing regurgitated 50 times, but they did an interview thing with a bunch of outlets, and all of them ask, "Hey, is there going to be a demo?" It's a secret. We can't tell you right now, which means in code, yes, there is. I mean, you don't ask a question in Japanese media and say it's a secret if it's not a yes. It's just like a cultural thing.
So I would imagine that I'm assuming 13th is going to be like Tuesday, right?
What day is that? I imagine it's going to be the next day.
No, it's actually Monday.
Okay, I imagine it's going to be
Monday.
like
this,
like
I'm
they
going
might do
to,
what they did
I'm
last time,
call,
where it's like a few days later, but we'll let some streamers do it a few days earlier, and then you all get it.
Yeah, I'm going to call it. It's probably going to be Thursday. Well, not Thursday, but the passing of Thursday into Friday. And probably there's going to be a select group of streamers that will be able to play it Thursday evening, I would imagine.
Okay.
Thursday evening.
Yeah, I agree.
Because that's kind of like how it went for Rise, if I remember correctly. We were given like codes for demos one day before the demo actually hit, and we would be able to play it at night or something like that. I don't know if that's going to be the case. That's just my prediction. So I think like on the 13th, which is when they're doing their big dump, which is Monday, they'll announce the demo, if there even is a demo, and then the demo comes out like Friday so that people can play it over the weekend.
This might be controversial because, I mean, I'm not a streamer, and that's part of it's part of just how the industry runs, but I think I mentioned it during Rise, but I do not like the idea of having a demo and then having select streamers be able to play the demo before other people can.
Yep.
Because the thing that bothers me is that usually it should be a call to action, as they call it in the marketing world, right? Like, sure, let streamers play it and get them set up with stuff so that they're ready to roll when it goes live, but people see someone playing it, they should be able to, it should be actionable. You should be able to go, okay, I'm going to go download the demo now. Or I want to play with you, right? Like, having it's like, oh my God, the demo's out. People are playing, and then going on the store and realizing it's not out. You're like, what the hell?
Listen,
and it's like, wait, when is it out for me in my country? I don't know. 10 hours, and it's confusion. It's panic. I don't like that.
I'm gonna be real, and this is like, obviously I've had access in the past to like early access to Monster Hunter and other games as well. And as someone who's had that early access, in my opinion, I wish nobody had early access. The only reason I even use the early access because obviously I'm competing in the YouTube market, so if I get a chance, I kind of have to take it.
It's your job, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, I wish that nobody would get early access. Streamers, media outlets, nobody. It's like, nope, game comes out this day. If you want to do a review, you get the game same time as everybody else. And it's, then publishers can choose, okay, we'll give the game to these people, because here's the thing. You don't make that much money on YouTube if you're like my size. If you're a huge content creator, it's like, yeah, you're going to make tons of money. But me, it's like, I make enough to provide for my family. I don't make enough to buy every single game that I would like to show you guys. So I think it's fair that some content creators get like the game, but it's like, I feel like it should be day of release. It's like, or even, the same way that when you pre-order something on a console and then it's like, oh, now when this game will unlock whatever, you can preload it and then it unlocks at this time for everybody. I would rather everybody have access at the same time because I think it's much more fun. But
I mean, I don't mind if outlets have it. I don't mind if outlets or creators have it early and there's an embargo where it's like, okay, we'll get it so that you can provide resources on day one. That maybe I'm biased because that's what I like to do, but that I see some value in. But the whole idea of seeing somebody playing it and you're like, nope, you can't yet. And I don't know when. No, it's 5 hours for me and 10 for you and 12 for you. And it's like, personally, it just feels like,
I do mind it. I do mind it because I don't. It's like I always like to put myself in the place of the player, like either a new player or an existing player or something like that. And it just doesn't feel good when you know that somebody's already played the whole game before you did.
Yeah.
This might be a very petty thing.
Yeah. The developers have played the game 100 times by now.
The developers is a completely different thing. But I just think that it doesn't feel. I just think it doesn't feel good for the end user to be like, oh, all of these people have already played the game, and you know how it's going to be.
Party, right?
IGN is going to already jump in there with like 1,000 useless wikis and all of their crappy
Gamefight
usual
database
guide.
will spoil the last boss to everybody day one, and
boss fight database, I think, was the name. They will spoil it on the thumbnail because that's just the way that shit goes.
Find a way to get YouTube to bait it onto your main page as a recommendation, so that only then you get the option to block it from being recommended to you.
Yeah.
But then again, you can't stop recommended videos, so it's like, ugh. I wish you can ban an account where you just never see them.
But not just that. It's like a lot of times because of the fact that, day one or something, you already have a bunch of guides out. And I'm a part of the problem there because I will put guides out. But at the same time, I'll try to maintain my guides to like, I won't just, Silver Rathalos. Let me just show you what the Silver Rathalos set looks like. Here's my tutorial while I'm wearing Silver Rathalos armor, thus revealing that Silver Rathalos is in this game, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think we're both good about that.
Careful, I'm very careful about that. So I'll try to keep my guides obviously minimum spoiler possible, no spoilers at all, if at all possible even, and just like showcase mechanics. And that's actually become easier with the training area. Because like the new training area is a godsend for making those weapon guides.
I mean, I used to just strip down naked.
Yeah,
not naked. I mean, like with just like the undergarments and do it in the tower or one of the camps where the camera doesn't whack out. Like that's how I got around it.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I remember watching those. I remember watching those videos. Those were good.
Thanks.
Back in the day when you still used to make them.
I'm gonna make videos for Sunbreak. Trust me. I've been itching.
Listen, guy, I want you to know, I'm pressuring Gaijin. Okay, I know that there's a lot of people out there. You know that there's a lot of people out there that are mad that I introduced you to Final Fantasy 14. They're mad. You took him away from us. Look at what you've done. But it's like, again, when it comes to this, I just wish that everybody would just get access at the same time and boom, that's it. The problem is that obviously there's time zones and all of this stuff, which is why all of that would have to be properly synced up. And it's never going to happen. The reality of the situation is never going to happen. Access media has been a thing in forever. So just in order for most creators to compete in that in that ecosystem, you have to fight for access and try to get it. So,
Yeah. It's a necessary evil, but I think that they can find ways to tweak the.
I just wish that most people would be more respectful when they are given access and to avoid spoiling things. Like with Elden Ring in particular, it was so disgusting. Like people posting literally everything, every boss fight ever. But it's like posting a boss fight, it's whatever. Typing the name of the boss in the title, that's pushing it. No. And then putting the boss in the goddamn thumbnail, that's the trifecta. That's just a trifecta. It's like
that's go to hell movement right there. Like boom.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously
positive stuff, but the gameplay has been pretty damn baller.
The gameplay is looking really good, but there's concerns about balance, and I wanted to talk about that before we move into the.
Sorry, did you just say balance and Monster Hunter in the same sentence?
Yes, I did. I want to talk about that because there's been an interesting development. I'm not sure if you've been following that or not, but there was a project that I wanted to do a couple of months ago, where because I meme so much on the longsword, I wanted to kind of punish myself and to make it right for the longsword users, which I guess that didn't end up happening, but I wanted to do that project, and I even talked with Super Rad about it because obviously he's a longsword user, and it was going to be like a challenge type thing, right? It was going to give me a build that I would have to do with the longsword, something probably quirky and fun, and then he was going to challenge me to fight like a monster or something, right? That was the project that I wanted to do. That ended up not happening because he had like college commitments, which he's since graduated, I believe, which is really cool.
Oh, well, congratulations, friend of the channel. Go let him know on Twitter. Congrats.
So basically...
That's awesome.
We ended up not doing that project. And recently I was going through my comment section and there was a guy who said something in the lines of, all of these YouTubers that complain about longsword being really powerful should go and do an Apex emergency monster and destroy it with longsword. And I was like, well, okay then. So I did that. And the best part is like, so Ratatosker on Twitter goes and he says, if you do this and make it look easy, I will drop longsword. And I was like, well... All right. So I wanted to give myself the least amount of attempts possible. So I did it once to learn like the the counter patterns. I went to, I even went to one that I'm not, like I've told you multiple times that Emergency Apex Rathian is one of the ones that I struggle with the most.
Yeah, she's the one that's really kicked your ass.
She used to kick my ass a lot, right? So I was like, I'll even pick this one because this one's harder for me most of the time. So I went in there, and the first time I went in there with the longsword, I just wanted to like get the timings of some of her attacks and try to get the timings of Yai counter and whatnot. And I do that, and it took me 16 minutes and change, which was already better than any time that I had on the gun lance, and I caught it once. So I'm like, okay, now I know how to do it. Let's do another run so that it's a little bit more clean, and that'll be that. Because I wanted to do it in the least amount of runs possible so that it's like extremely inexperienced, right? So I go in there a second time, and it was like, again, 16 minutes, but shorter than the first time. No deaths, and there was actually a point in the fight where it's just complete helm splitter spam. She's just falling all over herself. And I was like, this is great. This is a very good run. I mean, for me, obviously, because you can get the times much, much lower. And then I see the Ratatosker tweet, and I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to have to do something better than that, right? So I go in one third time, and in the third time, I got it down to like 14 minutes and 40 seconds. And that's with collecting full Spirit Birds. That's like 5 minutes of collecting Spirit Birds. So the actual fight's like 10 minutes.
No way.
I just obliterated her, right? And so I do that, but obviously I say, don't quit longsword because of me, because that'd be stupid. I just think this is funny. That to me, this is all just fun banter, right? Obviously, some people took it a little bit more seriously. And I would say that potentially one of the people that might have taken it a little bit more seriously was Beppo. I don't think Beppo liked my video.
Well, Peppo's a very high-level user of longsword.
A very high-level longsword.
Very high level.
Now,
so Beppo, I think the problem I could be guessing.
Wait. Let me just say. So what Beppo did, and again, I don't know if this was in response to my video or not. It seems like it was because he fought the exact same monster I did. But what he did was he said, "You think longsword is broken? Let me show you bow." And he goes in there and he demolishes Apex Emergency Rathian in 330 with the bow. And I'm just like, okay, so that doesn't really make my point any less valid. It just tells you that bow is even worse, which everybody already knew. It's like, ultimately, to me, I just want people to understand, to me, this whole thing is fun. And I think a really good thing actually comes out of it, which people actually start looking at the balancing of weapons in Monster Hunter, because there's a section of the community that doesn't actually take the balancing of weapons seriously. They're like, this is a PvE game, weapons don't need to be balanced. And I'm like, well, according to that logic, if there's a bowgun that shoots like a nuclear bomb and the monster gets deleted in one hit and every part breaks and tails fly off and you get maximum materials for shooting this one round of a bowgun at a monster and the monster just explodes, like literally just deletes the monster. According to that theory, well, it's just a PvE game. It doesn't matter, right? It's like, where do you land on this? I'm actually curious. Like, where do you land on this weapon balancing argument?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a long-winded answer on this one.
Let's go.
I think we differ on a lot of these things, to be honest. So one, just starting with where I think you get some of the knee-jerk reaction, where, people are just memeing and having fun and just sort of making fun of the fact that Monster Hunter has, as long as I've played it, it's always had a balancing issue. Like,
oh yeah.
In the idea that not all weapons were created equal in the hands of someone who has the same skill on each weapon in each monster.
Oh yeah.
Like, some things will just be better. I mean, of course, it's an action game, so some weapons are better suited to certain fights or whatever, but we're talking beyond that. We're talking like in general across all of them. If you were to like do a full data pool, I'm sure you'd see the results that certain weapons are just they perform better.
Well, I mean, people did do that with like the speedrun chart that's out there that, shows you the times of the best players and stuff like that, which illustrates the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the problem is that when people hear, if someone's playing the longsword and they hear, busted, broken, it's broken, it sometimes could come off, I think, as it sounded like it's invalidating their own skill with the weapon, and their achievements with the weapon, because there are people who work hard and they get fairly good with the weapon, and then to be told, oh yeah, of course you killed it easily with the longsword, it's busted. That's not a good thing to hear, right? And I think that could rub people the wrong way if they take it that way. So I think some people are thinking it's discrediting their ability in the weapon, which it's not supposed to, but I could see where that could upset some people. And then in the flip side, there's people like really high-end players who have worked very hard to get very good at abusing the hell out of that weapon. And even though the skill entry level to learn to be able to abuse that weapon is very low, like most people can start abusing pretty easily, there's still a high skill ceiling. So I think maybe, some of the higher end players might take it as, okay, are you discrediting the fact that I destroyed a monster in half the time as the average consumer? Is it just being busted? No, it's also I'm busted. I'm also very good. So I think it's just a weird thing where I think, throwing, well, yeah, that's busted. It's like, well, come on.
Here's where I land on that is like, and this is something that I made clear in my video before I even like show the run. I said, do not go out and harass longsword users, because that's friggin' stupid. That's just dumb. Like, why would you? As a matter of fact, you shouldn't just harass people, period. Like, if somebody doesn't want to engage with you in this banter, they shouldn't have to. Like, I think it's fun when you're among friends. Like, I'll always tease Q because he plays longsword and whatnot, and we have a back and forth, and he teases me because I play gunlance, which means basically his point is like, you don't contribute anything to the fight, and this is all just like funny banter between friends, and I think that is a fun thing. Naturally, if you're talking to strangers, it's a completely different thing. But ultimately, I never want to see people harassing somebody else over their choice of weapon. And I also don't discredit, obviously, because I think we've talked about it multiple times, that we look at the speedrunners of the community as like people who just do insane stuff that, it's just fun to watch, right? So
inspirational and fun.
Yeah, I think that is fun. And usually you tend to learn a lot from speedrunners as well, from the tactics that they use. And maybe you're not going to destroy the monster in the same way, but you might learn, if I do this cancel, if I do this cancel into this move, like for instance, me doing like a bunch of yai counters is because I've seen a lot of speedrunners spamming yai counters. And I'm just like, well, I think I can kind of pull that off. And so like, I'll practice it and I can do them as well. So I don't think that, me talking about how overpowered a certain weapon is invalidates the level of skill that high-ranking players have. At least that's not the way that I look at it. I'm not saying you're only good because you're playing an overpowered weapon. The angle I'm just saying,
like, that's how some people might take
some people might take it that way. Yeah.
Like the word broken, I don't know. Maybe it's the word, but I get flashback of memories of like when I was in middle school, and Magic the Gathering was just catching on, and you'd make a deck, and you would learn it really well, and of course there's always some balancing issues, right? In
Magic the Gathering, no.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if you go to a store, because that's what we did back in the day, you'd go to stores and you'd play all day at tables, and you destroy somebody, or you do really good, and you're feeling very proud of yourself because you actually did some good plays, and people are like, what is he playing? Blue deck? And yeah, it's busted. Of
course, he was playing blue deck. Of course,
it's like blue white. It's like the long sword. It's the
long sword of Magic the Gathering.
It's a control deck. It's like, okay, whatever, or that kind of stuff, right? And so feeling discredited with people just throwing it away like that, I remember having harbored bad memories, like emotional memories of that. Really
quick and sudden, off topic, kind of on topic. Knowing what you know about me, Gaijin, what's my favorite Magic the Gathering color? Come on, it can't be that hard.
Well, I'm gonna guess you're a white deck user.
What the?
No? Seraph Angels and shit? No? Wrath of Gods? No?
Gunlance? What, are you blue? Hello?
Oh, so what, red?
Of course, like
give me my Siobhan Dragon, fireballs and lightning bolts and forks and crap like that.
One of my favorite things was actually the fling ability. You know what the fling ability did? Fling.
Oh, we're different generations.
Yeah, we're probably different generations.
You're after Magic. I was, yeah.
Yeah, but like, so Fling, what it did, it would sacrifice a creature and deal all the damage of that creature to the other player. So the actual image is like a goblin on a catapult. That's the Fling.
Getting yeeted.
So what you would do on a Fling deck, right, is you'd have like a bunch of goblins, and then you'd have them all attack, and the opponent probably can't block all of them because there's a bunch of them, right? So the one that gets through, you lust him, which is +4, -4, and then you lust him again, which is +4, -4 again, and suddenly this goblin's dealing 10 damage. And the goblin deals the 10 damage, and then at the end of the turn, you fling the goblin, which is basically you grab
Are you sure it's called Fling and not Catapult?
Yes, it's called Fling.
Okay, then I don't know it.
Yeah, but basically the idea...
There was a cantaloupe. What the fuck am I saying? A cantaloupe, yeah, that
Catapult.
Back in the day, but okay.
But yeah, the whole thing would be, so, you know, at this point, the goblin would be like 9/9 or something ridiculous like that, and you would deal 9 damage, and then you would fling him at the opponent on top of it, and it would be 9 additional damage by sacrificing the goblin, which, you know, that was like my favorite Magic the Gathering deck, but it wasn't particularly powerful. I mean,
it was a one trick. The first thing that popped in my head.
It was a one-trick pony, right? So, like, after people saw what you were doing, it's it didn't work anymore.
Interrupt that shit. It's like, nope.
But anyway, so it's like the...
You say that, and the first thing I thought about was, like, the Chaos Orb and people flinging the card on the table, and then how people found the linguistic workaround at tournaments, apparently, where they would rip up the card into many pieces and sprinkle it on the field, and, hey, it's touching all these cards, destroy them. And it's like, joke's on them because the card ended up becoming very expensive.
Yep, because everybody would slash it up.
I mean, it was hard to begin with. But anyway, I digress. But I think I just want to say, like, I think some people's reaction is less that they don't agree. It's that maybe they feel slighted with people.
Yeah. They probably feel slighted. And I can understand that, but one of the things that I want to make clear to anybody that ends up watching this is, like, the angle that I'm coming at from is Capcom, please, come on. You know, it's like, we just want to have fun. And the other thing...
With the other weapons, lift us up.
Yeah, lift us up or nerf every weapon down. It's like, to me, it doesn't matter either way. It just feels like there should be a little bit more. And I don't want every weapon to be perfectly balanced. And I've talked about this yesterday, even on stream as well, which is a lot of people brought up the fact that, you know, Rurikhan, you keep bringing up the times. The reason I bring up the times is because it's a very easy, universal measurement that people tend to use with Monster Hunter. To be honest, I don't give a crap about the times at all. Doesn't mean anything to me. The thing is, I want the weapon to feel powerful. So, like, if I play a longsword, right, and I'm attacking the Apex Rathian, it feels powerful because, like, the Rathian falls over and then it gets back up and I'll chop its tail and then it, like, trips all over itself, then comes at me again and I'll counter and hit her again, and it feels powerful. If you're playing, like, a gun lance, you barely see any drops from the monster. The monster just, you know, ignores most of the hits that you're doing, even though supposedly it's ballistics, it's shelling going through armor. It doesn't feel powerful. I don't care about the times. I want the weapon to feel powerful. And it doesn't. And it's like, I've been playing, for instance, Switch Axe, because obviously it's not as powerful as Longsword. I want something that also has explosions and stuff. So I'm playing Switch Axe, and while it's not nearly as fast as Longsword, right? It feels powerful because the monsters get tired, because I'm using exhaust file and stuff. Monsters get tired, monsters fall over, there's KOs, there's tail chop. It feels good. And the gun lance in Rise feels terrible. It doesn't feel powerful at all. And that's the angle that I'm coming from. And it, you know, like the gun lance, you can talk about other weapons. Like, you know, I feel like the lance also doesn't feel particularly powerful or whatever. But, you know, it's just, that's the conversation. And in a way, I feel like it's a good thing that more people got involved, like Peppo saying, oh, look at Bo. And I'm like, yes, exactly. Yeah. Look at Bo. I hope somebody comes after and says, oh, look at light bowgun. Exactly. And heavy bowgun. Look at all of those things. Let's look at all of them. Yes, please show it to Capcom so that they can see. Like, I actually think it's important to have that discussion because, sure, it's not super important in terms of like, oh, it's a PvE game. You know, these weapons don't have to be perfectly balanced. But if you happen to like a weapon more, that weapon should still feel powerful. And yes, there should be matchups. So like in this matchup, this weapon feels less powerful. In this matchup, the weapon feels more powerful. It's whatever. But that's not what's happening in Rise. What's happening in Rise is, you know, the weapons that are at the bottom, they feel weak on every matchup. That's the problem.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on all those, and I think also what's making the issue more predominant and feeling worse now is the fact that, you know, like you can have games where if you want to say something's powerful based purely on damage or comfort or fun or whatever, like all the weapons are fun, but if you're just like, at least in games where there's like, it's PvE, like every weapon has a role and it does stuff other than just do damage, right? Like, so there's some synergy between the weapons and players. We're getting to a point now where weapons like the longsword have so much utility that they don't care what other weapons are doing. They're not getting any contribution from the other weapons. Like, I don't need you to stun lock or paralyze because
the hunting
I'm unlocking them down.
They get good contributions from the hunting horn.
They do, yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, so everyone should feel like they're not being pissed on for choosing the weapon they are, because all the weapons should be, as we call them, viable. I mean, everything's viable, but what we mean is, you know, equal enough where, yeah, some are much easier to kick ass with, some aren't, but all of them you can feel like you're kicking ass. And there isn't one that's just light years beyond the others, which unfortunately has been the case. But then again, I don't know if I'm pessimistic about this, but I'm just thinking back to, like,
it's always been unbalanced.
Yeah, because I'm thinking back, like, I started with Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, or 3G, right? So 3 Ultimate, and that was the most lopsided balance. I remember blast weapons negated everything in that game.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you were playing anything but a blast weapon, it's like, oh, I purposely want to spend longer to fight, and the things I'm doing in the fight aren't going to change. I'm just going to take longer, just because. Yeah. It's like, okay. And that was kind of dumb. It was fun, but it was dumb. And then there was the Kelby bow. And I'm like, okay, what QA tester was giggling their asses off that they actually, you know, the designers said, yeah, let's go with this thing. Because that, if you wanted to find broken, that was ridiculous. You just fling pellets, level 1 shots over and over and just blow a monster up to death. It was the easiest way to kill anything in that game. So Kelby bow was hilarious. I mean, back in that day, they couldn't patch a game, right? It wasn't as easy or as feasible. But what kind of bothers me, maybe not bothers me, but it makes me raise my eyebrow, is that they've never been very good at balancing, right? Like this, no. Even World had issues with stickies and stuff like that, and you know, and I don't think the team has ever been particularly good when it comes to keeping everything on an even playing field. What is weird is I saw a comment saying, like, you know, we're listening to feedback and we have some weapon tweaks planned for future updates. I don't know if that was just a bad translation, but I'm like, why don't you just change it for day one? Like, why wouldn't you make those tweaks now? Like,
I think
it's just weird.
I think the
we
reasoning,
haven't played the game.
I think the reasoning is because the development team knows that, you know, they can do all the internal testing that they want. Once you get it into the hands of players, you know, like speedrunners, once it gets into the hands of Team Darkside, then things are going to change, right? Team Darkside is going to break the game because that's what they do.
But they don't have that data. I mean, I'm sure they're going to get it and they're positive about it, but to know that you're going out with balance issues from the get-go is kind of weird to me. Like, I would imagine that you go out with your best effort and you're like, look, we're not going to get it right, and there's going to be oversights, like the jumping in Monster Hunter World, like jumping off and charging with the great sword and stuff.
Oh yeah,
like, that was abusable as hell.
Ledge hopping,
like it happens, right? But to say this, I don't know where I saw it, but it was like to say, okay, yes, we're listening to your feedback and we have plans changed for future updates. I'm like, but we haven't played it yet. We actually don't know if there's an issue. We're pretty sure there is. Yeah. And I don't know why you don't seem to know that. But like, okay, whatever, man. But
I feel like the Monster Hunter team,
I hope they do some tweaks.
The Monster Hunter team was definitely put in the spot with World because of how successful it was, because the community was clearly not as demanding in terms of you know, balancing and stuff in the past. And obviously And obviously them revealing damage numbers didn't help that at all, because people start saying, wait a second.
It made it worse, yeah.
The great sword that does what? And here's the interesting thing. Like, if people remember back in the live streams that I was doing before the release of World, I was advocating for them not to show damage numbers because I feel like it takes a little bit away from the Monster Hunter experience. And then people are like, well, you can turn them off. And I'm like, well, if they're giving me information, I'm going to see it. You know, it's like, I don't want to be blind to what's happening, but I would rather them not do that. And, you know, you'd figure out if you're doing okay or not based around how much time it takes to kill the monster. Again, it just adds to the whole hunting fantasy. But, you know, nowadays it's all about meta and let's just do it faster and bigger numbers and whatnot. But that pressure that they've gotten since World basically put a lot more eyeballs into the game. And now obviously people are like, wait, my weapon's actually not that good. What's going on?
I'm kind of curious. Is like, I don't know how they're doing it in the dev team, but especially culturally, maybe Japanese studios would be way against doing it. But I kind of wonder why most companies these days don't appear to, like, if I was running a development team, what I would do, I mean, obviously you'd have to do this post-launch because of, you know, people leaking NDAs and stuff like that. But like, I think it would be kind of neat to just call and pay to bring in a breadth of players that from the community who are really good, get them in the office, let them have hands-on with all the weapons they're good at and abuse the living hell out of them and start getting their feedback on how to make tweaks to make them all feel good. Like, I think they would, because if you're working on a game for years, I would imagine that you start to get a warped vision of what you're looking at, right? Because, you know, you can't be objective about it. You've played it forever.
Like, for instance, a developer will like work on a weapon and they'll be like, okay, so the most efficient way of playing Gunlance right now is full burst, right? And then suddenly Chaos Slayer will get its hands on it and he's like, no, actually, if you do Charge Shell into Wormstake, that deals more damage. And developers were like, we didn't see this at all because we were just doing full bursts because that's what they thought was the mathematically most efficient way. Now, you know, it's just things that you can't think about it because you don't have like a fresh pair of eyes on the thing, right? So, yeah.
So, I mean, I laugh at the topic because it's just so funny. It's like, but it's broken. It's never been this bad. I'm like, well, maybe, but I'm like, it's never been that good. But I do think that they should make more effort to not bring Longsword necessarily down, although that is its own topic, which we've discussed about. If a weapon has too much utility, then it takes away from the aspects of the other weapons. But, you know, balancing. I mean, I think it's just going to get exasperated. Is that no? It's going to be exaggerated in Sunbreak.
You think it's going to get worse? Basically, is
worse.
What you're saying. Yeah. I think so too. That's the vibe that I'm getting, which is why I'm in
just
preparation.
Have fun with it, guys.
In preparation, I've been practicing switch hacks, so I have it in my back pocket. So it's like, okay, Gunlance is still looking pretty bad. I'm gonna swap the switch hacks and let's go. Because switch hacks is a ton of fun, dude. I've been playing a lot of switch hacks. It's real.
I love switch hacks.
Yeah. So we're gonna go over the changes. Like, if you guys remember, I made a video about like all the changes and stuff. We're gonna get Gaijin's opinion on a lot of these changes. Before we begin, though, I now know who the author of the document is. They credited themselves on their YouTube channel on there. It is a YouTube channel called Fan. And thank you very much for putting together this document because, you know, I was trying to go through Japanese videos. I actually, at one point, I did like 6 hours of research and I was typing it in Notepad. And then I had a power surge.
Oh, no. It didn't autosave?
No, it's Notepad, dude. It's just like it was gone. So luckily, you know, I just went onto Twitter and I like, guys, I don't know what to do. I don't want to look through all these Japanese videos. This is insane. Yeah. And then I got a link to this document by the guy called Fan. I will put a link to his channel in the description of this video as well. So I appreciate your work to the community, good sir. But yeah, we'll go through the document and we'll get your opinions on it. So number one, and this is the worst possible news. Logi's not in the game, dude.
So I'm curious. Like, where did this come from?
There was an interview. I believe it was an interview with, I don't remember the name of the website, but yeah, there was an interview on a website where they talked about the reasoning behind it, which is kind of like reasoning that they've given before, which is the number of contact points that Lagiacrus has with the ground. It's weird, and it probably because like and then people are like, well, but Mizu has legs and stuff, and he actually stands on them, and same thing.
Yeah, they're not calculating all those things.
It's a weird thing though, because when you think, for instance, of Somnicath lays on her back and slides through the map. Doesn't that have multiple contact points?
A lot of that body is actually clipping right through the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the way the monster is visually designed. It doesn't stand out as much as like if Laggy was clipping through the ground half the time, it would look so bad.
Oh, I guess that might be it. Yeah, probably Laggy would
like
clip
you
a
see
little
half
bit
its
harder.
body, like its tail clipping into the side of a wall as it slides upward. It'd be like this game is broke. Like what the hell? It'd be a QA
must be
issue.
it. They're not being able to like make Laggy look good.
I mean, because game is all smokes and screens. Like most of the
smokes
stuff,
and mirrors. Yeah,
like you're not seeing the it's like that Simpson meme where like Homer's got like on the outfit and he looks really good, and then behind him you get all the clips holding his fat back and on his back. That's an actual thing, right? Like models will do really crazy things to make it look good because you're only seeing the surface. And I think the problem with Laggy is that it's so big that when things are not working right, it almost reminds me of like the skewer Rathian, where she goes down and she just gets skewered into that map where she's just sitting with her head in the ground. The old shrine map. It's a really funny bug that happens a lot.
When that clip and she goes down and she's head in water. I remember that.
It happens a lot.
I thought that really only happened in the demo. I've actually never seen that in game. It must be a multiplayer thing.
Imagine if you see things like that are visually jarring that take you out over and over again. It would probably not be. Yeah. So I think it sucks. But then again, we're also on the Switch. I mean, PC, I'm sure can handle harder computations, and the RE engine is probably more than capable. It's just dedicating all your time and resources just to solve one monster who was designed in an era where it was in waters that didn't care. It's clipping the water. Well, no shit, it's in the water. And then when it was on ground, back then, all the maps were completely flat.
Yeah, they were just flat.
Like, they might have rocks, but they were literally just illusions. Like, you could walk through them. Like, they're not actually there.
It's interesting to think about that because obviously he was in GU, and GU does have a couple of ledges in maps, but did you actually fight really Laggy in any of those maps? I don't think you did. I think they mostly put him on that
always flat ground.
On the flat ground stuff. Yeah, I remember him being in that map from I think from Freedom Unite or something. What's it called? The jungle or whatever, and then it has like that island stuff and whatnot. Yeah, I think those were most of the places where you would fight Laggy. So it wasn't a huge problem there. But yeah,
I mean, it's interesting. I haven't seen any other interviews that said like he's not, but like it's not surprising to me. And also, I think they should hold it off for the next Monster Hunter.
Look,
I really, Laggy, my dreams for the next Monster Hunter. So.
Yeah, it's gonna have underwater in your dreams. But look, Laggy is like the flagship of the first Third Fleet title. I mean, come on, man, we gotta have Laggy. We want Laggy.
Can we get? I want Great Jaggy. What are you talking about?
Sure. I wouldn't mind Imagine Great Jaggy in G rank, dude. It's like the last time we saw Great Jaggy was actually Stories 2. There's a Great Jaggy in Stories 2. It was an interesting monster. But Laggy's not going to be in the game, and apparently no more rampages. Would you look at that? We talked about it. We talked about how story-wise it was wrapped up in Kimura, so it doesn't make a lot of sense story-wise, but I still expected it to come back. Despite the fact that I didn't want it to come back, I expected it. Where do you land on that?
I think when we talked about it last time, I was betting that we wouldn't see Master Rank rampages, and because there's a few reasons that I mentioned before, and I think they also touched upon, which is one, they made it to be like, hey, from a story perspective, like that's resolved, like that was tied to a story thing that's done, so we're still going to make it worthwhile to do. Like the stuff that you get from rampages, we'll find other uses for it, but we're not going to tell you just yet what it's for. So I'm really interested. I think we get some clues in some of the screenshots we'll be talking about that what it might be. But I also think that, we talked about how I felt it was, and you felt as well, that it was a failed opportunity for them not to do a very high difficulty rampage as a DLC quest, because it would be fun to see if it's scaled or not, right?
Yeah. And
just to see how it would be. And they never took that opportunity, which tells me that they probably tried it internally and realized it doesn't scale at all. And they didn't want to they didn't want to be embarrassed by it, right? You don't put out, if you know internally that it's not going to work, then you just leave it. And I think they probably tested it and realized, this shit don't scale. So, it makes sense that it would not come in Master Rank. I love the fact that they're going to find a way to, because I enjoy them and they're a great break. I think it's cool that they're going to find a way to keep some meaning behind doing them because, if you're starting out and you didn't play Rise, you are going to be doing a few rampages, not a lot. It's mostly optional, but it would be nice for those who do enjoy it that it's not like completely useless. Like there might actually be a reason to go back to do some of the high rank ones. I'm interested to see what they do, but it's no surprise for me at all. What I'm curious now is what they're going to be able to replace that with, and I'm hoping it's going to be something like a siege or something like that.
In the document further ahead, there's actually a theory somewhere where it says that potentially one of the new ways to get Rampage tickets could be follower quests, because it shows like if you go to the picture with the follower quest, it's got like a couple of tickets and there's a red ticket in there. I'm not sure if that means anything because we've seen red tickets before for other things, like even Satsu no Hado is like a jam. But like there's tickets for like event quests and whatnot, so I don't know if that is the case. And I don't necessarily think that follower quests, getting those would be a good thing, because imagine like you're playing with friends and then you get like you craft a new weapon or something and you want to ramp it up. It's like, okay guys, I'm going to go do a single player quest now. It's like,
nah,
I don't think that makes a lot of sense, but that is a theory that is in the document. Yeah. So no rampages. I think that's going to be an overall positive thing because a big portion of the community didn't like them. So, and again, they weren't really challenging. If you love doing them every now and then. It's like if you were just logging in to do rampages over and over, would you really want to do that?
Have you seen my Hunter? I've done hundreds of rampages, and most of them are solo, actually.
And there's also the fact that I believe that they were one of the most efficient ways of raising up your Hunter rank, because I seem to remember, how G rank Rupeku always goes for Hunter rank 999. I seem to remember every time that I would tune into his stream, he'd be doing a rampage, and I was like, that's probably the most efficient way to rank up fast.
If you just did a Danger 7 or whatever it was, like the Rathalos or Diablos one, man, you'd
shoot up through ranks.
Really fast. Yeah. But then again, everything raised you pretty fast, so it was never an issue of it taking a long time to raise your Hunter rank in that game. So
I'm at 280 on PC right now, dude. Looking good.
Rampages?
No, 280 Hunter rank. I mean, above 280. I don't know exactly which level I'm at because I don't care.
On Switch, I think I left off at 580 or something like that.
I'm like 400 something or 300 something on
and that's
Switch,
the highest I've ever gotten. I never get that high with Hunter rank.
That's a good
because I usually play solo for G rank stuff. I always enjoyed that solo, so I wasn't pounding out the quest like everybody else, which is
so.
But yeah, so Rampage, expected.
Then we have a couple of more things. These are fairly basic. Mount stage lasts the same amount if you turn off the option to auto mount. So, but I do feel like they reduced the amount of time that the monster is up, because I saw a video of this and it didn't feel like the monster was, in mounted position as long as it is right now in Rise. But basically it means that mounts are going to be tighter. So if you want to get the mount, you have to get in there fast to pick up the monster. And if you don't want to get the mount, it basically works like what they called in Iceborne a clagger. Do you remember when the monster's like, all tired and drooling, and then you'd clutch onto it and come out? It's going to be pretty much.
I don't know if Western videos covered this, but a Japanese creator who was doing it actually said what the controls were, which was nice. So you'll have an option, and at least how it is now, you'll have an option so that when you hit it, when it's mountable, you'll automatically mount it, just like we had in Rise. The other way it's done is that you have to sheath your weapon and then press Y, or whatever it is.
I think it's
Y or A, or one of the two. Yeah,
but I mean, it depends on your controller now. That's going to be a problem. If it's the Switch, it's the A. If it's DualShock, it's the circle. It's weird, dude. For tutorials, I'm actually going to have like a controller overlay, because, how are you going to explain it to people? It's going to be weird as hell. So, yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of good, because you don't normally put your weapon away on accident. So I think that's a good solve. And you'll lose. I think that'd be fair, though. Like, if you have that option on, and you just want to squeeze out a few more hits before you mount, that your mount timer would be decreasing a little bit. Yeah. I think that would be a nice tweak. I haven't looked at it far enough to know if that is, but as I would hate it to be like, no, don't mount it right away. The most effective way is to throw 4 bombs, then blow it up, and then mount it.
I don't think there's enough time for that. I'm pretty sure there's not enough time for that. So there's no limits on the skill swapping, which is something that we theorized from the footage that we've seen. That is insane. The fact that there's no limits on skill swapping and on the dodging and all of that, it's basically absolute evasion for every single weapon. It's wild.
See, the way I view it is, and after watching the videos, I got actually excited because I realized what I was feeling is that this is an implementation of adept style.
Yeah, it's adept style. Yeah.
Like that had all the users are saying like this. It feels like evasion. I guess in the modern day it'd be called evasion +5, but evasion, a little bit more than evasion 2 in the older games.
It's more. Here's the thing. It's more than evasion 5. If you look at the Charge Blade showcase video, it's more than evasion 5 because dude straight up dodges through 2 Gosarag attacks. It's insanity. He's just like, I'm just gonna dodge this, and swipes literally go through him. Nothing.
Yeah. So, that was how it was in Generations Ultimate. The way that they balanced it was that monsters moved fast as hell.
Yeah.
So, if you did your little evade afterwards, that half, a few frames where you were stuck just landing on the ground, the monster would turn around and then poof, it just hit you. But this time feels like it's going to be, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, if the wire bug was the defining mechanical feature of Rise, the swap evade is going to be the defining feature of this game, by far. I think it's going to change everything.
An interesting thing
not because you're changing your skills. I think even if you have your 2 scrolls, A and B, they could be the exact same skills. I think it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Using that swap evade is going to be so important.
I think that, and one of the interesting things that you pointed out on Twitter that I hadn't noticed before was that with the gun lance, it was a unique animation where it would dodge, and it seems like it's got guard points throughout the dodge, so potentially different weapons will have different dodges, which is wild. But yeah, there was definitely guard at the end of the dodge with the gun lance if your weapon was out, which was interesting to see. But yeah, that's cool. Ruby Gold wire bugs and actually give you an extra wire bug. We kind of already knew that. It only gives you the mounting buff, which for the red I think is additional damage or something, or longer time for mounts, and the gold drops more shinies. Level 4 decorations are back. There's not a whole lot to say there. I mean, it's gonna.
Yeah, I mean they weren't going to increase the number of slots. I mean that was when they adopted the 1, 2, 3 system, that was the only solution.
The situation here is going to be we're going to be able to craft them. I'm assuming. These are not going to be random anymore. You're going to be able to craft them because charms are what's going to be random. So that's going to be a good thing. Now, I didn't understand this, and there's a picture here with a bunch of Japanese. Maybe you can help me with this one. 100 Wyvern Rampage Deco slot on weapons. What the hell is that? It seems to me... It seems to me like what that means is that there's going to be a ramp-up skill that gives you a tier 2 slot. Is that what it is?
So, quick cultural note for those who don't know. But Rampage has a much cooler name in Japanese that you cannot translate into English. But in Japanese, have you ever seen the old, the Japanese calligraphy style scrolls where it shows a procession of 100 demons, and they're it's like a parade of demons going throughout the town?
Yeah, I saw it in Monster Hunter Rise.
But they call it the procession of 100 demons, where they reworded it to be the procession of the 100 wyverns. That's the name for Rampage in Japanese. So when you say Hyakuryu, they're just saying Rampage. So they're saying it's a Rampage decoration. So the thing is it doesn't. We don't know for sure, but it doesn't sound. The way that it's written here doesn't make it sound like this is a decoration that is only applied when you're in rampages. It seems the opposite. This is something tied to rampages that you're able to either craft or get, or maybe use rampage tickets, and there's going to be a new
it's a ramp up skill. That's what you call the thing. It's a ramp up skill. Yeah. So you're going to be able to get different levels
because there's 1, 2, and 3s or 4s probably, and you'll be able to attach it onto it. So that's the way they're probably going to balance out, and also give. Because the ramp-up system was smart, but they only had 3 options, which meant 2 of them were usually shit.
Yep.
So the fact that they'll be able to split these off more by tiers and powers, I think would be really cool. If you could have 2 level 1 rampage skills on a weapon, that would open up the door. Like I said, I think balance is going to be broken as living hell in this game because the power increase of the hunter is so much. It's just going to be a free-for-all. It's going to be pretty fun, but... The thing about that screenshot, though, that I liked the most, and this is what I called on Twitter, was the sharpness plus modifier preview. I've been wanting this for several titles. I'm super excited that they have it. In my old Monster Hunter 4 videos in Generations, I used to do like my top 5 favorite weapons, and I would always steal the graphics from the Japanese wiki, which would show this is what happens if you have sharpness plus 1, and this is what happens when you have sharpness plus 2. And everyone would always be like, how did you get that graphic? How did you know? Because it's not intuitive. You don't know right away if it's going to go to purple or if it's just going to be long white. But now you're going to be able to see that, and that is awesome because that communicates to the players so much more information about the potential of a weapon and sets that you can make with it. That's a really good change.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, I just want to make it clear, if you guys are watching this, I'm going to be linking the document itself if you want to follow along looking at the pictures as well, because I'm not going to be showing the pictures in the video, but there will be a link to the document if you want to check that out. But not only that, obviously purple sharpness is back. I kind of feel like that was pretty much a given. Purple sharpness always comes back for G ranks. But yeah, it's a good thing we'll be able to preview the stuff without having to slot in handicraft to see what happens. Then we have the talk about bleed. Now, it says here, bleed now cures 2 to 3 seconds of crouching. It's kind of like pretty much the same as it always been. I don't know exactly how many seconds it was of crouching. There's also consumables that it can cure bleed. But I saw an article talking specifically about bleed on VJump. I mean, it was Google Translate, so I don't know exactly how accurate it was. But the idea is you actually don't take additional damage for dodging. So you can dodge as much as you want. What happens is if you don't get rid of the bleed before you get hit, you take a chunk of damage from the bleed, that little purple gauge that is there. You take that plus additional damage because you were bleeding, but the bleed goes away. So getting hit makes the bleed go away as well. It's like a punishment type thing. They've simplified the bleed a little bit more. I like the old school bleed more because it was extremely punishing. And like we talked about, I think it would have been much more interesting for bleed to just be something that would heavily punish wirefall. So you wirefall while you're bleeding? Ooh, that's not good. Take chunks of damage, additional. Yeah. I think
your intestines just fall out onto the ground and then little jackies come and they eat it.
Yeah, you get sliced up by the iron silk. But I don't like at first glance, I don't like this implementation of bleed, but the problem is if the monster difficulty is going to be significantly ramped up, dealing with bleeds could become like a real problem, particularly if you happen not to bring a consumable like a sushi fish or something of that nature. I don't remember if sushi fish is what does it, but yeah. Because it's not going to be Astera jerky, because that was from Astera. Maybe there'll be Elgato jerky or something, but yeah.
Yeah, I like the new system actually because it was never clear in the past games exactly how much damage you would take if you didn't get rid of the status. It would just sort of and just hurt you over and over again. But now it's like, okay, every time you evade, once that thing procs and you take that damage, it's going to be worse, and you're just it puts more pressure on you as a player. Because every time you evade or any time you do anything, it's just going to build up, and then
it builds up through evades. I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm looking at an interview right now.
Oh, you're looking at
the media.
Okay.
Yeah, they said that if you get hit while you're in the status, you'll take all that red is going to be additional damage that you're going to take because you're opening up your wound. So when you get hit, it's going to really hurt. They said, yeah, you can crouch or you can use an item to get rid of it, but every time you evade or dash, it's going to increase. So that red bar will just start going.
Oh, okay.
And so it says, hey, you're in high risk zone, man. You just evaded 5 times to get away, and now you're gonna take 80% damage. So good luck.
Oh, okay. That okay. Never mind. I take it back. That makes way more sense then. That is actually awesome. That is because that will also punish wirefall because wirefall is essentially an evade. So. Evade with wirefall, your wound goes higher. It's not good.
They also mentioned in this interview with Capcom that if you have the bleeding status, it's almost like they can smell the blood on you, and so it will give a natural almost aggro to the monster. Ooh. So they said if you try to run away, grabbing distance and run away, They said monsters will start going up to the air and trying to strike down at you in the middle of it. They don't want you to be able to heal it up. So they will actively go after you, and they said use large hitting techniques or attack you from the air and do things in order to stop you. They said that that's one of the ways that they're buffing up the monsters, is that the monsters are going to have no chill. They said they will not give you a break. If they see you gain a way to heal, they will come right after your ass. Like they want people to be on their toes.
So, I mean,
I like it.
They have to do that because with all of the tools that we're getting, it's like we said, it's just going to build up the ampo up to 11. It is what it is. And by the way, guys, I know that probably some of you guys will hear the Q-pop sounds from Final Fantasy XIV because I just heard them. And I know that in one of the episodes, you guys were saying that Gaijin was playing 14. He's not. That's Yuna.
She's in the living room.
I just want to make that perfectly clear, okay? Now, continuing on, we have another screenshot here. It shows us that follower collab quests are going to be their own category, kind of like Rampage quests right now. They take the place of Rampage quests in there. I was hoping that you'd be able to bring followers into Village quests because I think that would make for a more interesting, storytelling potential and whatnot. I'm just hoping there is a little bit of story to some of these follower collab quests, like something that tells us more about the characters themselves, even though, again, story is not the most important thing for Monster Hunter. It's not a bad thing if they spruce up the story a little bit and give these characters a little bit more,
One thing I did like, I don't know how much they showed it off on English streams, but for Japan, they had about, I'd say a good 8 to 10 channels that they gave access to, maybe 6 to 8, I don't know, somewhere in there. And they were showing off a lot of the recorded lines that they did for the characters that really show off their personalities. Like, if you, they were showing, one guy was, cooking meat, and if you screw it up, there's certain dialogue that they'll say. If you do it right, there's certain things they'll say. They'll react to things that you're doing, and they'll
that's
talk,
cool.
Verbally. So they really fleshed out the personality.
Listen, me and Master Harlow, we're going to be homies. Me and Master Harlow, we're going to be, together the whole... It's going to be the first time I get to play with another Gunlance player, dude.
Wow.
It doesn't happen in the actual game, dude. Nobody plays the Gunlance. So I'm going to have my Gunlance buddy, and it's going to be me and my Gunlance buddy. It's going to be great. We're going to have the best of times. They teased some kind of subspecies of arachnoid, which could indicate that there's potentially another... It could. Yeah,
there's almost always a subspecies for all the flagships. Yeah. So that's no surprise. The only surprise here is that it was red and orange, which we already know that it's a fire monster. So it suggests that it may be a blast type subspecies.
But it is weird because there's so many fire things being revealed already, right? You got Bob, his blood orange Bishaten.
We need more waters.
We got blood orange Bishaten. We got magma Almudron. Now we have another fire Rachna, so it's weird. There's a lot of fire beasties. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. This is the thing about the follower quest potentially doing Rampage. Now we get into specifics for weapons. So Gaijin, I want to know, how hard did you laugh when you saw the longsword user getting bounced back from Harvest Moon? Because I laughed so hard, dude. I laughed so hard.
Okay, so it puts a circle, and inside the circle you're God, but the circle is so wide for a longsword user that they literally had to okay, I'm going to very purposely put away my weapon, run over here, then try to leave the circle. I'm as a longsword user, the whole point is that you don't need to run away or move. Yeah, that's not a demerit at all. At all.
One of the things that I'm curious about is that I've seen in some of the footage, and I don't know if this was related to another action that took place, but when they used Harvest Moon, there was little silkbind things attached to the monster, kind of like when you finish a mount and they're just trapped by silkbind. Does that mean that Harvest Moon also traps them? Have you seen anything about that or no?
I haven't looked into it enough, so I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe.
So, yeah, we don't know. But basically, the longsword user is going to be locked in there. Now, the question is, are other users locked in there with them? Are the longswords going to be even more obnoxious? I'm going to lock everybody inside this circle. You're all staying here with me for 30 seconds.
But you know what this means, though. We can start memeing, and when the longsword user triggers it, we can all run outside the damn circle and bait the monster out of it. And they're like, dude, Bring him back. Nope.
Look at you advocating for actual griefing of longsword users. Stop it.
If you're playing with your friends.
Oh, you can only do this if you're playing with friends. Don't grief longsword users. That's a bad look. Sacred
the moment the longsword user puts it up, just throw some poop on the monster, you know? Yeah. Oh, look, it went away. Wait a second. Who tongue bombed him? Get back here.
So Sacred Sheath does exactly what we talked about in the previous thing, which is you can eat all of your stuff for additional damage. The interesting thing that was discovered in this is that apparently fully charged Sacred Sheath deals more damage than Helmbreaker currently, at least in the footage that they've shown.
Did you see it, though? It also looks crazy. Like, it goes...
It does.
Like you drop all your levels into one big-ass charge and you hit it.
It's pretty freaking
really
beast.
It looks satisfying.
I think you need to have level 2 Spirit Gauge in order to be able to use it. So like if you're on white, I don't think you can use Sacred Sheath. So you have to
I'm
be
sure it's going to be one of those
scenes
scenes where like unless you're red, it's pointless type of ideas probably.
Yeah. They also got kind of like the Valor parry type of thing, and it levels up your gauge every single time, even if you don't hit anything. So like if you just counter like a roar but don't actually hit something, level up your gauge. You counter like a fireball, level up your gauge. It's just like,
so the first thing I thought when I saw that, I'm like, wait, are you telling me that small bombs are going to allow me to get a free gauge?
Probably.
Like if I'm in an arena waiting for monster to spawn, I can just use
level
small
up your
bombs
gauge
to get myself up to level 3. Like that's the first thing to hit my mind. I'm like, that's so weird. I mean, they're really doubling down on we're not going to punish you for failing the mechanic. We're just going to reward you a little bit less.
The interesting thing is like whenever I'm looking at all of these longsword counters, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, meanwhile, I land one guard's edge and I can't even land the fucking follow-up because my reach is so damn low.
Takes too long.
It's just like, and not only I not land my worm stake, but on top of it, I lose the worm stake and I have to actively go and reload the gun. And meanwhile, longsword users over here is like, he roared, I get 1 gauge. You shot a fireball and missed me, I get 1 gauge. It's just like anything happens, you get a gauge. You get a gauge. You get a gauge for free. Yeah. It's like, what? And here's the thing, even if you're not good at countering, don't worry about it. All you got to do is bring up Sakura Slash. Boom. Just use Sakura Slash to get your gauge. Oh man, but yeah, memes aside, it's like it is what it is. It seems like they're still showing favorite the longsword. So longsword mains rejoice. Your weapon's looking pretty damn good. It is looking kind of memey on the Harvest Moon stuff though, because people will meme on you. But it is what it's. Gunlance has been paying cool tax for so long. Now it's your time to pay some cool tax. That's what you get. Yeah. Not a whole lot of new information for Greatsword. Looks like Hunting Edge now costs 1 bug.
Yeah, they're tweaking some of the cost values for Silkbinds.
Yeah.
I was surprised by the language they're using. It sounds like there's going to be like a handful of new switch skills, like 5 or something like that. Like there's going to be a bunch for every weapon. So we haven't seen all of the switch skills. No. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about Greatsword. By the way, Insect Glaive users, there's no Insect Glaive notes in this document. Sorry, feels bad. It is what it is. Sword and Shield, they showed off a new Silkbind, but the video in which they show off this new Silkbind doesn't really show it off very well. It seems like some kind of like gap closer that finishes with a shield bash, and my prediction is that there's going to be some kind of a follow-up to that, but they don't show it in the video. They just kind of like spam the Silkbind. But there's probably some kind of follow-up, maybe an uppercut, maybe it goes into Perfect Rush, maybe it goes into a more powerful shield bash combo. Hey, anything with the shield, man, give it.
Yeah, it's almost like a ground version of Falling Shadow, because Falling Shadow is the thing where you yeet yourself into the air, then if you hit the monster, you get to come back down and do all kinds of stuff. This is like the ground version of that, which I'm all for. Like, I think it's going to be a great Silkbind. It's just we haven't seen what it does yet. But, anything that gap closes and puts you in a position to be offensive with Sword and Shield is going to be very, very good. Particularly now that you have also Destroyer Oil and all of these things. It's going to be good.
Oh, yeah. Go aggro, man.
Now, this thing I'm going to need some clarification from you guys, and you're going to have to help me on this one for the dual blades. Drill Slash requires you to hit a weak spot, a 45 hit zone or more for it to work?
No, that's
exactly. That doesn't. When I saw this one, I even said in my video, this one doesn't make sense. I don't think it works like that. There's no way. What does it say in the actual article?
No,
there's a link to the article there.
No. The thing is that I mean, this is just V-Jump, so I mean, I wouldn't take their word as gospel. They're just a reporter writing their impressions of something. But I've seen videos of it, and this works the same way it does in Generations Ultimate, where you could do it and it does hits, but if you hit a weak spot, it does additional hits. And I see this as being a major theme throughout this game, possibly, is that there maybe one of the ways they find a way to extend power is through buffing additional hits. Like maybe there'll be weapon skills like deals additional hits, do more damage, because a lot of weapons are getting mechanics that do additional hits. You know what I mean? When you land them the right way. So interesting, but yeah, you don't need to hit a weak spot for this one. It's just you don't get the extra sweet damage hits if you don't do that.
Okay, so when it comes to the Gunlance, the new Wormstake move, which is the Erupting Cannon, it lasts for 30 seconds and it doesn't reset when you sheath your weapon. I was like, oh my god. Now, if only they do that for Ground Splitter as well. You think that would make sense? Because, like, why would you have one buff that doesn't reset when you sheath, and then you have another buff that does reset when you sheath? Like, it's weird. Do you think it's still going to reset when you sheath Ground Splitter, or do you just not?
Like, I don't know. I mean, I also don't know whether or not they're going to change some of the stuff from these preview builds that they're using to the final build. We have no idea. So,
and the shell. I mean, it's. The shelling damage on the preview build is something really weird, like Chaos Slayer is trying to extrapolate data from it, and I'm like, I don't know, because that thing doesn't have any artillery. The reason you can tell is because whenever they fire Wyvern Fire, you can see that it goes all the way to the maximum, which means it doesn't have artillery at all, because otherwise it would only go like up to halfway. But on top of it, it's just like the shelling values seem off for the Gunlance that they're using, which is the Nargacuga Gunlance, if I'm not mistaken. So I wouldn't really read too much into the shelling values. I kind of feel like they're just like, okay, this shelling does this amount of damage, that's it. And this build shelling does this amount of damage per shell, and whatever. But, could not be that. Could be something different. I just don't know. But I wouldn't look too much at that.
Capcom did not give any of these media outlets extra info. They just let them play it.
Yeah.
And they told them what they couldn't show, because there was several people who were mistaken about how certain things were triggered or moved, and they just said, look, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so no one from Capcom was answering
and here's the thing, that there might be some people that you look at this type of coverage and you go like, well, I mean, why didn't you take your time to actually do it properly? You don't have time when you're doing these types of things. Like, as someone who's been to conventions and stuff, they put you in a room and it's like, hey, you got 5 minutes, have fun. And it's like, oh, I mean, in here it was probably a little bit more than 5 minutes, but it's like the same rule applies. They give you very little time, and you have to try and figure out as much as you possibly can in the little amount of time that you're given, while also capturing footage to put on your channel. So it's not surprising that some of this stuff might be kind of weird. But to top it off, it was funny because for a while, it was like, oh, Hail Cutter only costs $1. No, it was wrong. It still costs $2. And here's the thing. Even if Hail Cutter costed $1, it's still completely worthless, because Bullet Barrage fully recharges your Wyvern Fire, whereas Hail Cutter doesn't. So it's like, it doesn't matter if it costs $1, $2, it's still a worthless skill unless they give it something else. Now, my prediction is that they're potentially going to make it synergize with Erupting Cannon. And so when you do Erupting Cannon, and, while you have the Erupting Cannon buff and you do Hail Cutter, then it's going to deal like, I don't know, ridiculous amount of damage on melee damage, not shelling, melee damage. I think that would be the thing.
The thing, I want to know if I've just been playing Final Fantasy too long and I haven't touched Monster Hunter for too long, because I don't ever remember it. And if it was there and I didn't remember it, then I'm certainly getting old and you should be concerned. But the thing that struck me most about these preview videos that I thought was awesome was that they're displaying the next possible moves that you can do on the screen. They're picking like 3 possible next moves that you can do on the UI.
No, that's not the next possible moves that you can do. That is the...
Or is that Silkbinds that you can activate?
No, that is the switch skills that you currently have active. So the way that it goes, at least from my understanding of what I've seen of the footage so far, is like So, for instance, with the Sword and Shield, right, there's a new combo. Right? Instead of having the Shield Basher combo, there's that new sword combo that you can do, correct? So it'll tell you that's what you do after a Shield Bash. You're doing this combo because that's the switch, that's the scroll that you have equipped right now. If you press L2, those skills change. Because it tells you, okay, not L2, the left trigger, because that's how you trigger the Silkbind skills, right? So if you press it, it'll change and it'll tell you, okay, if you press A, you're going to do this Silkbind skill, and if you press this, it's going to do this Silkbind skill. So it's letting you know the things that you have equipped for your scroll, which is why it's always telling you, if you press the left and X plus A, it's going to do the Silkbind swap thing. So it's not your next move. It's just letting you know which moves you have equipped. As a matter of fact, I hope...
It pops up so much that I just glossed over. I was like, oh, cool. They show you the next move.
I hope
you're right. It doesn't. But it pops up so often that I'm like, is that going to confuse people?
I'm hoping that you can turn that off. And only keep the color of the scroll you currently have equipped. That's the only thing I want. So that I know, okay, this is the scroll I have equipped. And if and then I'll just know in my head, okay, blue scroll has ground splitter and red scroll has bullet barrage or something like that. And then I'll know, okay, right now I'm in red scroll, so I'm in bullet barrage. That's all I need to know. I don't need you to tell me like, oh, if you press A, it does this. If you press X, it does that. It's like, I don't need to know all that stuff. But yeah, and it's dynamic too. So it'll change depending on the weapon that you have equipped because it's not always A. Sometimes weapons change different combos and whatnot. But yeah, that's what that thing is from what I can tell. But yeah, that's the gun lance in a nutshell. I'm still suspicious. I still believe that Erupting Cannon is going to come with a 20% damage nerf to the movement values of gun lance, but we'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong.
That'll be the day one thing that you check, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'm just like, Erupting Cannon, did I lose damage? I probably did. This friggin' sucks. But yeah, then we have Hammer. Impact Burst has Hyper Armor. That's a good thing. And Valor Dash as a 1-bug Silkbind. That's a weird one. I'm not sure if you've seen that video, but because like the move itself is covered by the monster when he does the move, so it's very hard to see. But it seems like a Valor dodge, basically. That's what it looked like. And I'm not sure what it is because it does use a bug, but I'm not sure what else it's doing. As Gaijin furiously watches the video. It's like, there's some weird stuff. Yeah, the monster covers it up, so it's very hard to see.
Yeah, I mean, basically he's just starting up a wind-up animation and there's iframes at the top. Isn't that what's happening or no?
Yeah, it is.
He's using a white bar. He just has iframes at the top of it. Cool.
We don't know exactly what that is, but yeah, that was the one thing. And Impact Burst having Hyper Armor, again, I think that is a good thing because, it'll give the hammer a little bit more of an identity. It's like I can take a couple of hits while I'm preparing to deal more damage, which kind of makes sense. Hunting Horn, Impact's Press, what?
It's an interesting thing. I'm looking at this clip, and he's not changing the scrolls, so it's not...
It's not it's not an evade.
He is using one bug.
He uses a wire bug. He moves forward.
And I can see which one he uses because the right one goes gray. And the goddamn text on the screen is covering it. Oh, why would you... Oh, and they actually write the name of what he did, too. Come on. Here we go.
Gaijin's like going frame by frame right now, you guys.
Yeah,
Zoom in.
He did Impact Crater. That's what it says.
Oh.
But that takes $2, so it couldn't have been that. So if it's grayed out, that means he did the other one.
Yeah. It's the dash thing that you go with the hammer forward. But yeah, it's whatever. It's a move. We can't quite identify it. Looks like he does some kind of like Valor dodge. It's whatever.
Weird. Yeah, I don't know, but it looks good.
Yeah. Then we have the Hunting Horn with Impact Press. The Impact Press is like the Impact Crater move that they get. The Impact Press Shockwave Ball does elemental damage. I believe
it appears to do so.
Yeah. I believe that is told in the actual video, like in Japanese, so they don't actually show it, they tell you. Impact Press leads into Infernal Melody, makes sense, because, you want to have more things that link into Infernal Melody to keep the flow going.
Impact Press, I think they're trying to make, like, they want you to use this no matter how you play the weapon.
Yeah.
Like whether you have to swap to it or whether or not you have it on your default, I don't know, but they want you to use this because it seems like everything.
It's a really good, yeah. And on top of it, it's going to have hyper armor as well, which, you already have a move with hyper armor, which is slide beat. Slide beat has already got hyper armor. Now you get it also with impact press, which is pretty good.
So people will die as they do it. Impact press deaths.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, listen, if I end up playing Switch Axe, I'm telling you, I'm going to die so many times from zero sum discharge. Because like that's the number one killer for me. It just murders me all over.
I don't know if
place.
people realize, like, Master Rank, G Rank, the thing that kills most players is
hyper
getting stunned, defense down status, which no one seems to recognize.
Oh yeah,
and hyper armor.
Hyper armor.
Being able to hyper armor right through an attack. Yeah, not a good thing when you don't realize you just lost half your life.
It's like, this is great. I remember even back in the Rise
even World
demo,
had it.
One of the things that would kill me often with Switch Axe, because we had that move. What's it called? Invincible Gambit or whatever. We had that move, and I'd just be like, oh, dude, I can Invincible Gambit through this. I can Invincible Gambit through this. And then suddenly I was back at camp. It's like, oh, okay. I just took a teleport. I came here a little bit faster.
A Gambit. Yeah, because I remember in World, people had that same issue getting used to what was it? The mantle? The
Rocksteady.
What the hell's Rocksteady? Yeah, because you still take damage and you don't actually realize in the heat of battle how much damage you're taking.
It was so good.
Whoops.
Still one hell of a mantle, though. Probably the best mantle. It's insane.
I didn't get it until post Fatalis. I never unlocked it. And I only did that on a sub account. I don't even have it unlocked on my other account. Not interested. I hate the sound that it makes when you put it on. That shankly sound. Yeah, it's too gritty. It's like fingers on chalkboard for me. I don't like it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we have the LBG Mech Silkbind Shot, which is new Silkbind Mini Wyvern Heart. I mean, this is pretty cool. I saw it. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't really play light bowgun, but it looks pretty cool.
Gunner,
it goes like...
I play a lot of light bowgun because of rampages, but until we get hands-on these, it's going to be impossible to know what we're looking at.
It basically brings the Daka to light bowgun, which it didn't have it before. Only the heavy bowgun had it. I don't even know if you had Wyvern Heart and Rise. Did you? You didn't, right? I think you only had Wyvern Shot. I don't even know. I didn't play bowguns at all. I don't play bowguns, so don't quote me on that. Silkbind Glide into Wyvern Blast, cost reduced from $2 to $1. That's good because I thought that was fun. I like sliding in and popping a shot whenever I did play a little bit of light bowgun. That was cool. Then we have Heavy Bowgun. Siege Fire uses the charge shot input, which is really annoying to enter. Don't know what any of that means. Siege Fire cooldown decreases slowly over time, similar to Gunlance's Wyvern Fire cooldown. Oh, interesting. So they're basically going to feel what it feels like to have a beefy cooldown as opposed to just like, oh, I'm loading my Wyvern ammo and firing the better version of the Wyvern Fire, by the way. For those of you who don't know, Heavy Bowgun has a better version of Wyvern Fire. As to why, don't ask me. They stole it, made it better. Siege Fire can be sidestepped out of. Okay, sure, fine. Then Charge Blade, and this, when you look at the Charge Blade, you see the number of topics here. You can tell that fan is probably a Charge Blade main.
Yep.
So the first thing that he says is that it's poop. Super Amped Elemental Discharge, or UED actually. It's not SAED in this game. It's UED, Ultra Elemental Discharge. Files seem to be unchanged. Please, for my sanity, don't trust anyone that says changed, because all the SAED we have seem dead center. Spinning Axe still depowers when you morph the sword. Oh, that sucks. That sucks, dude. I don't like that. I preferred it if there was a timer, kind of like the condensed elemental slash. Because you know how it works right now, right? The condensed spinning slash. You charge up the chainsaw hammer, right? You sheath your weapon, goes away instantly. So if you sheath into axe, you don't have it.
Good.
No.
Good.
I like the way it worked in Iceborne. I thought it was better. Okay. Fine.
No, I was never a fan of the move, and I think if you're just gonna stand there going like Gears of War on a monster, then I'm sorry, but the whole idea is you're committing to I'm not moving. So if you get hit or if you lose your buff, I'm sorry, you guessed wrong.
Max number of ticks per swing with Spinning Axe is still 5. Activation spinning speed for spinning X maybe got decreased. Charge sword now lasts 60 seconds. I don't know how much it lasted before, so whatever.
I never charge my swords.
I charge the sword all the time. I just don't know how long it lasts because I instantly recharge it the second it's not charged. Because here's the thing, right? Charge blade also has a lot of maintenance, very much like it's one of my complaints with Gunlance. And this is just my opinion, but the maintenance that you have to do in Charge Blade is 100 times easier than the maintenance that you have to do in Gunlance. So I never really had too many problems with it personally. Then you got new aerial Silk Mind attack air dash replaces Morph Advance. Thank God, because I hate Morph Advance. I really don't like it. And the air dash looks like fun. It's basically like a moonsault, kind of like Guile's, the Guile kick. Yeah. It does kind of like that, but with a charge blade, so that's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Ready stance gets knocked back like a regular guard. Yep, that's the way that it goes. You can loop. I don't know what ED2 is.
The Elemental Discharge 2, that's the double swing with the A button.
You can loop with ready stance, and it's not going to... It's so bad. He instantly says, and it's not going to be good. It's like, I get it. I mean, Charge Blade got the short and the stick as well. Side hop distance got increased. That's important. Like, if that is true, that is very important, because that's one of the things that made Charge Blade way more mobile, was how much you'd get. I mean, he says side hop, but I'm assuming it also affects the sliding slash. Sliding slash was like how you'd get around, and they really shortened the distance on those in Rise. As a matter of fact, one of the things that frustrates me the most about this whole longsword memeing and whatnot is that that baseline longsword dodges further than all of the other melee weapons. I'm not joking. It's and most people, they don't believe me when I tell them this. I'm like, no, it's true. It's almost like having Evade Extender 1, except it's baseline. And I just like to know why, right? Here's the thing. If somebody at Capcom ever watches this, here's my question. Why? That's all I want to know. Why does the longsword need to dodge further than all the other weapons? That's just something I'd like to know. But anyway, it getting side hop distance increase, that's good. Because
I mean, again, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but we actually don't know. Like, because as far as we know, they're using a master rank
set,
Magmalo set, and maybe the set has evade distance.
One evade extender, we don't know. Yeah, but it's like, I feel like particularly for a weapon like the Charge Blade, getting its evade distance increased is extremely important, because it has too many requirements. Very much like the Gunlance, you need artillery if you're playing impact files. You need a quick switch, which on that, like, just think of it. We just say those two skills, right? Quick switch and artillery. Okay, so that is 6 tier 2 gems. And then on top of it, you want to have at least one evade extender so that you can move around a little bit. Like, that's 7. And then if you wanted to use load shells, that's 2 more. That's 9. That's 9 tier 2 gems. It's a little bit much, don't you think? But yeah, so side hop distance getting increased would be good. Switch axe, new counter, consumes 2 bugs. You enter a stance that drains your sword gauge steadily. If you time next input correctly, you automatically enter amped mode. So it's Yai Spirit slash for switch axe. That's good. 2-stage morph slash gives you a lot of gauge. This is good. New down thrust can hit up to 5 times. Oh no, this is Lance already. Jesus, I was like skipping ahead. Yeah. But yeah, switch axe is looking real good. The only thing I'm hearing in my head is, good luck making tutorials, guys. God damn it!
I just hope
it's gonna be impossible.
I just hope that the switch skills don't take that long to unlock, because if they do, you all not getting tutorials for quite some time. Because at this point, I think we kind of need to wait until we unlock all the switch skills, because we've already covered the core tutorials for Rise of the weapons. So the major differences are going to be how these things synergize with each other and how you could possibly configure it. And so I don't see myself doing any video on a weapon until I have all the switch skills. So I'm hoping that they unlock pretty fast.
I hope that they unlock pretty fast as well, because if not,
y'all just gonna have to wait, because I'm not gonna.
I'm telling you right now, you're gonna get the Gunlance ahead of everything else, then probably the Sword and Shield or the Switch Axe, and then I'll think about
and
the
Hunting
other ones.
Horn from me, and God knows when I'll get to the other ones.
Okay, so then we have Lance. New downward thrust can hit up to 5 times, which I believe is 1 time going up, 3 times coming down, and 1 time on the finishing move. New guard advance thing does not consume stamina, so the little shield tackle thing that we're getting does not consume stamina, which is good because the guard charge or whatever the hell it was called consumed so much stamina. And Twin Vine cost was reduced to 1 bug. Twin Vine's still a skill that I really don't care that much about, so it's whatever. But now at least it's 1 bug, so maybe it'll see a little bit more.
Still won't use it.
Okay. New skill, redirection. Give back a certain amount of wire bug recharge upon successful swap evades. I believe that this is a skill that is in the Lunogaron set, because you can see it in some of the videos. Whenever people are wearing Lunogaron, whenever they go and they do the swap evade thing, it glows blue almost like Valor. So, yeah. Endgame grind and title updates. There won't be any additional endings added via title updates like it was in Rise. The story will end with patch 1.0, which I think has obviously always been the intention with Rise. It's just, COVID happened, and therefore they had to do it the way that they did. In terms of endgame grind, we're planning a few free updates. We'll let you know when the time comes when we can tell you about them. We are thinking about end content, that is, content users can play over and over, but it is a stage that I cannot tell you yet, so please look forward to the information that will be released later. Okay,
I hate these translated.
So one of the things that I want to bring up is there is no way in hell that they don't know what the endgame loop is right now, and if they don't, that is a really bad sign.
No,
it's more like they're not gonna talk about it yet. That's the whole point.
I swear I've seen an interview in Japanese about this, and this is not what they said. But I need to find it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you the other one. The other one is, I think this is actually the comment that you talked about at the start, which is regarding the balancing of weapons. So our developers are also doing test play every day by collecting users' feedback on these parts. First of all, the parts that need improvement among Rise's weapon actions were reviewed, and development was carried out by considering the new action elements introduced this time, such as quick replacement, and what kind of play can be played when combined with dash. I'm assuming this dash, they're talking about evade swap or swap evade, whatever. When it comes to adjusting the balance, there have been times when an unintended situation occurred, and about weapons and buffs and nerfs, we consider it important to see how we set them and whether they are operating as we intended. Since it is not known what form of unintended part will appear, this is so weird, what form the unintended part will appear in until it is actually released, it is likely that the judgment will be made based on the situation. Basically, actually translating that, it means we think this is somewhat balanced. We're going to put it out there, and you guys are going to break it, and then we're going to look at how badly you break it, and we're going to change it based on that. That is my interpretation of that paragraph right there. I could be wrong, but that's what it feels like. So Gaijin's been looking for this article, which is why there's a little bit of a transition here, and you found the article in a Korean website and you translated it to Japanese, and now somehow it makes more sense than this Japanese to English translation on the topic of the whole endgame grind thing. So tell us about it.
So fun linguistic note here. One, machine translation is machine translation. It's highly unreliable in many cases. However, that being said, I don't know how much you guys know about SOV and SVO and stuff like that, but the sentence structure in Korean is pretty much identical to Japanese. And so as long as you learn, okay, for this word they say this, for this word they say that, you can practically just search and replace your Japanese to Korean, which is why there's so many excellent speakers of Japanese in Korea. The languages grammatically are identical when it comes to subject, verb, object. So it does have the advantage that machine translation does a much better job than when you bring it to English. And I couldn't find the website in Japanese because I remember reading this exact comment. I just couldn't find the Japanese interview, and the machine translated from the Korean interview is exactly what I thought it was. So I'm going to just trust my memory here. But the question in this interview was, okay, some user, the question is in Monster Hunter Rise, there was some user feedback where, it felt lacking in in-game content. For example, when compared to World with its investigations or other type of limited content for Sunbreak, do you guys have a fulfilling end contents plan for the game? And also, is there post support with updates being planned for this one as well? And their answer was yes, we do have several free updates planned, and we'll let you know about those when the time is right. As far as end contents is concerned, that is to say, some gameplay mechanic that players will play over and over again. Yes, we've put thought into that, but we're not at a point where we want to reveal that. So please look forward to news in the future. So they're not saying that, we're thinking about it, because it auto translates to that. Like we're thinking about it, but what they're saying is, yeah, we've kept that in mind. We've considered it. But when he says Hanashi Deki nice stage, he means like we're not at that point. We're not at that specific point in time
to reveal it,
to talk about it and reveal it. So please look forward to it.
Okay, yeah, because the translation made it seem like, yeah, we haven't figured it out yet. It's like, wait, what? There's no way you haven't figured it out yet. There's absolutely no way.
They're just saying, look, we know that people want something that they can continue to grind at, and do. Yeah. Like we know people want it, and we do have something in store. We're not ready to talk about it quite yet.
In that same article, do they bring up balancing of weapons at all? Because that was the next point that was added into this document. I'm just curious.
Yes, up above.
They do?
This is a really interesting question, actually.
No,
because the question is saying, like, there's been lots of people moving from one weapon to another due to game balancing. For example, there's a lot of people who feel that lance and gun lance and guard weapons were overlooked.
Yes, they were. You're goddamn right, they were.
Are you guys going to be looking to redo like a patch for balancing? Do you guys plan to do like a faster patch cycle for that kind of stuff? And so Sujimoto says something to the lines of
Sujimoto. This was the Tsujimoto?
Yozo's answering this one.
Okay. I thought it was the actual director, but okay.
Suzuki now. So he's saying, for Sunbreak, we already have lots of changes that we're adding to each weapons. Not just to the weapons themselves, but also, stuff like whether you want to mount a monster or not, you'll be able to have player choice there. So, yes, we're listening to user feedback, and we're doing our best to incorporate it in the game. To give an example outside of mounting, it's really minute and kind of a niche detail, but he's just saying that, they want to get into more details about some of the changes they made. Apparently there was something regarding like when you mount a monster, maybe when you mount it or when you're mounted on a wyvern riding, like changing direction is kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it is.
Like trying to turn. So they're saying, they've got changes there as well to make it easier. So they're like.
I thought it was interesting because it almost feels like each monster has a different. It's almost like a car. Each monster has a different level of handling. I thought that was interesting. Like there are some monsters that turn faster, other monsters turn slower. I thought that was fine. Like Teostra handles like a goddamn truck. Like you're like rolling up against the wall. Hitting all the pins on the side of the road. It's like, here we go.
Yeah, so for the weapon balance, this is interesting. So, and some of the machine mistranslation here is hilarious. Like they called it a nerve, like a pain nerve in your foot or something.
Because it is.
I can get the gist of it. I get the gist of what they're saying though. They're saying, look, when it comes to like trying to achieve balance, like there's. Of course, they always patch and fix things when there's unintended things that pop up.
I guess that tells us that bow animation canceling issue is pretty much intended.
Intended, yeah.
Because they never patched
it. But as far as whether to buff or nerf a weapon or to make some changes, first thing they've got to make sure is that the weapons are functioning as intended. And really, until they release the game and players get their hands on it, it's really hard to tell. Like what parts are going to start, whether or not it's actually performing correctly. So they said that they'll release the game and they will take a look at how things are played out, and then they'll make their judgment calls.
Yeah, I just feel
so I guess he's just saying that a lot of times they can't really know without a lot of data whether or not, their intention is coming off correctly or not. And, if they see a trend where it's not, then they'll fix it.
I feel like it will be more important than ever for particularly Japanese content creators to take a look at weapon balancing and provide that feedback as fast, because I kind of feel like Capcom's just going to listen to the Japanese content creators faster than the Western ones, because that's just usually traditionally the way that Japanese companies operate, I feel like. So I think it'd be important for as many people as possible to provide that feedback, but not like, oh, I've played 5 hours, this weapon's broken. It's like, no, you have to play a little bit more than that. You have to actually get the end game, get a build set up, and start comparing things. But I'd say about like 2 weeks into release or something, it'll be the ideal way of providing the ideal time to provide that feedback.
I don't know who did this interview, this game shot or whatever, but like freaking props to them, because they're asking the good questions that you don't see. And I can't use machine translation as a basis to say what the answer is, because the one above this is also an incredibly juicy question, which is saying, hey, there was some negative feedback to the way that free updates are handled. When it comes to the final ending of the story in Monster Hunter Rise, will the ending for the main story of Sunbreak be accessible on release?
That's what we talked about at the start of this segment. There's not going to be any additional endings added after patch 1.0. Or is that not what it says there? Uh-oh.
Whatever this machine translation is giving me something that's different.
Okay.
So I think we need to get someone who speaks Korean, because I can't. I don't want to make a judgment, but I'm seeing conflicting information here.
Okay, what does it say according to your best interpretation? And again, guys, this is we're now entering the realm of speculation, lost in translation between Korean/Japanese into English, and it's going to be quite hectic. Well, what's your best interpretation of whatever is said that in regards to the ending?
I hate to make a judgment on it, but it's really, it's giving me an iffy thing. He's saying, at least in the machine translation, he's saying, yes, we have several free updates planned for this title. For each update, we'll have additional monsters and additional mechanics that we're going to be adding to the game. To answer your question about what's going on with the story, we're making the game so that you're able to see the ending after Sunbreak is released. But I don't know whether that means after, as in like, no, you won't see it on release, or whether they mean, yes, like right when it's released, yes, you'll be able to see the ending. I don't know. I would have to know the Korean to get a direct answer to that one.
Interestingly enough, it's like from a story standpoint, obviously we all want the full game, right? Like from a story standpoint, them holding off on a monster for a little while, I mean, especially considering this is a digital title. This is not going to be, there's not even like physical versions, right? We talked about that last time. The physical version is probably going to be a Rise cartridge that comes with Rise 1.0 and a code. That's probably what's going to be in the thing. So it's like a lot of people actually stated that, it was cool that the final monster wasn't revealed because it didn't get spoiled instantly, as it usually does. So there's a yin and a yang to that particular. Yeah. So basically, we're not 100% sure what's going to happen. But that is pretty much.
I really wish I knew Korean. This interview seems incredibly fast. Like, all these questions are really good ones. Like, they're not the typical like pre-made questions that Japanese media is told to ask, so to say.
Dude.
So like, yeah,
they got to let me interview Ryozu sometime. That's what needs to happen. Yes, you need to go up to Capcom headquarters, just knock on the door. And it's like, hey, we want to interview you, and we don't even need a translator, okay? Like, we're good. Just slot us in, and we're good. We don't need a translator.
Yeah. So this was just to give props, or for those who do know Korean. It seems that it's a website called GamePia, and apparently it's a big media site, and they did the interview. So very interesting. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Speculation upon speculation. And that's usually a fun thing maybe I'm just getting too old. Maybe I'm too addicted to Final Fantasy 14 to devote time to it. But I'm just excited to get my hands on the darn game and play it.
So Monday, we're going to know more, guys. I'll be doing the usual live stream reaction to all the things and over analyzing all of the information. But that we're gonna be calling it here for now. Gaijin needs to go buy food because I know that you have no food in the house whatsoever.
My refrigerator is literally empty. There's nothing in there.
So Gaijin needs to go buy food. We don't want Yuna going hungry, and then he's going to binge some more Final Fantasy 14. So thank you all very much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Third Fleet Podcast, hit up with a like. There's links to all of Gaijin things below. Although, I don't know when the next Gaijin video is going to be uploaded. No commitments there. But, yeah.
See, the thing is, I was so going to make a video the other week. And then on Saturday, I was just like, oh, it's Saturday. I can make a video. And then that's when Yuna said, I want to do the current tier Savage. I'm like, okay. So we did it, and we did beat 1 and 2, which I'm quite proud of with our
P1S and P2S.
Yeah, that we were able to do it. But that took away my plans to make a video for that day. So, it's a struggle. I will try.
Anyway, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe.
And get ready to scroll your swip swaps and your switches and switch on Sunbreak.
And switching.